We've just described Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a 4-step system. It's beautiful, it's elegant, and it's deadly effective. Step number 1, take the fight to the ground. Take away the danger of explosive kinetic energy. Step number 2, get past his dangerous legs. Step number 3, work your way through a hierarchy of pins, each one graded upon your ability to harm your opponent with strikes on the ground, and set up step number 4, submissions. And now the question that needs to be asked: where do Leglocks fit into that system?
John Danaher's 4-step system is a great system to follow for a heuristic game plan. Now, to this day, I still keep it as a general rule whenever I go into the training room and I'm doing live sparring sessions. However, it was once I started no-gi when I began to learn and incorporate Leglocks that 2 issues became glaringly apparent. So, number 1, it was whenever I would go into Leglocks, I was either going to fight for Leglocks and stay into that position, or I was going to accept getting smashed and then start playing a more defensive game. In either instances, I couldn't figure out a way to incorporate a system of advancing position from Leglocks. And although guard passing from Leglocks have always been taught as an option, it wasn't really a thing that clicked to me until I started to learn and study the Berimbolo. In my opinion, the Berimbolo itself was probably the most difficult and challenging sequence that I've had to learn and study. In this clip here, Ryan and I spent an entire day trying to figure out the relationship between grabbing the hips as well as inverting in the Berimbolo. I'll put the link in the description if you want to check out that vlog. Now, full disclaimer, I still have yet to hit a seated Berimbolo live. However, when studying the Berimbolo system, I gained a lot of insight into guard passing and backtakes. Although grips are ultimately fleeting in no-gi, because of how connected we tend to want to be during a leg lock exchange, the bolo becomes a very strong tool to capitalize on. While executing bolos can be challenging, if the opportunities present itself, the bolo can be a cheat code to quickly, 1, rack up points, or better yet, sink in a very strong finishing position. Alright, so if we follow John Danaher's 4-step system to Jiu-Jitsu, the bolo system becomes a fast-track path somewhere between steps 2 and 3. Within the framework of step 2, we're going to have some kind of a connection to the legs. From step 3, if the bolo is actually successful and we're able to invert around, then we get into the back, getting a rear pin. Finally, if we're really lucky, then we can actually sink in a submission from there, but chances are we're probably going to be fighting for a submission from the back. Alright, so really, what is a Berimbolo? Now, flanking is a method used to create angles to expose your opponent's back. In the context of stand-up wrestling, we can use arm drags to expose your opponent's side and work towards capturing your opponent's back in an ideal world. Now, with that in mind, when we're on the bottom, a Berimbolo can be used to generate movement, angles, grips, and connection to expose your opponent's back. So in other words, we can think of a Berimbolo as being able to flank someone on the bottom to expose someone's back. Because of how difficult it can be to gain and maintain grips in no-gi, the Berimbolo gained a reputation as being challenging as well as risky at times. However, because of all the connections that are made within leg locking, there presents 3 unique paths from leg locking, in which number 1, we could start attacking the legs and start exposing the heels. Number 2 is to take the same leg locks and try to pass guard. And number 3, whenever there's back exposure, we can start to work towards taking the back or generate back exposure from certain Ashi positions. All in all, I really think the Berimbolo is a challenging move just because of the mechanics that are involved and also the timing and recognizing the opportunities, the when and how to do it can be difficult at times. That being said, my guard passing developed really quickly as well as made major improvements because of learning the Berimbolo, from understanding a lot of the grips, sequences, as well as positioning from the bolo to understand where back exposure occurs as well as where guard passing opportunities occur. In a recent Who's Number 1 matchup between Nicky Ryan and Rene Souza, we could see him hit this really slick back take. And although it's not a Berimbolo per se, the concepts are kind of similar in the sense that Nicky's using this opportunity to recognize the back take and then flanking to expose the back. All in all, I have to say this was probably my favorite card to understand and kind of witness the trilemma between Leglocks, back takes, as well as guard passing. In this match between Dante Leon and Ethan Krellison, we could see how Dante Leon is able to capitalize on Ethan Krellison being connected to attacking the legs, and from here eventually exposing the back and going for a submission. So Berimbolos in gi are easier to do because of the grips that present themselves with the gi. Although grips are fleeting in no gi, we can utilize the connections made during leg lock exchanges to work guard passing or back exposure. If the ultimate goal is to master Berimbolos, a good starting point would be to understanding leg locks as well as develop good Granby rolls as well as being comfortable being upside down. Now, I put out the word proprioception in there. It's challenging to work upside down, especially when you're trying to pummel in legs and start to see and understand inside and outside position while being upside down. But eventually your brain will start to make those connections, and it's just a skill that will get developed over time. So on the topic of the trilemma, escaping leg locks presents a great opportunity to pass guard, and this is actually a really good and straightforward path for people who don't like to play legs and would rather figure out a way to escape legs and then start advancing position. Understanding when guard passing opportunities present itself can help with the switch from going from defense to offense and knowing when to make that switch. The key theme here is really recognizing opportunities. Now from here, we kind of go full circle. Different leg locking positions will present a varying degree of back exposure, and it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to take advantage of those opportunities. At the end of the day, there's actually a lot of really good opportunities to take the back without utilizing crazy inversions or bolos. And really, a big portion of that is a matter of how you situate and position your hips and knees in between your opponent to start exposing and taking the back. So really, at a practical level, these are the three things that I would focus on personally. Number one is to focus on attacking the legs and understanding the leg locking positions. Number two is to learn guard passing from leg locks. And then number three is to start to recognize the opportunities to take the back from leg lock exchanges. Within a given week, I might be lucky to see and recognize bolo opportunities maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. But these three paths that I go for in terms of leg locking, guard passing, and back takes are something that I'll be utilizing every day and in almost every role. That said, I think bolos are really, really cool, and they're definitely fun to play around with. And actually learning bolos have helped me understand this trilemma even more by studying it from a backwards lens. The first few bolos that I actually learned were from the standing position in leg locks. And this really helped me understand the concept of wedging and the difference of knowing what happens when your secondary leg is in a different position and how to capitalize advancing from those positions. Right now, double pull is a position that I'm still trying to learn and kind of understand, but it's a unique position that has leg lock, back takes, as well as guard passing opportunities. This Polaris match between Ben Eddy and Imanari has been a real inspiration for me to start to learn and study the double pull position to build a game off of. I mean, seriously, the exchanges here are really crazy and awesome. Alright, finally, in my opinion, I think the best resource to learn Berimbolo from is the Submeta thread for no-gi, bolo, and crab ride. Now, this thread goes through pretty much all the aspects needed to hit a successful Berimbolo. Everything from the wedge, to the grips, to the leg positioning. The Submeta will go through a conceptual approach to understanding what to do, why to do it, as well as refining a lot of those small details and also show really cool examples of it being done in action. I personally found it helpful to have a good understanding of guard passing first before watching this thread. However, that said, because of all the detail that's in this thread from Submeta, you might be able to get away with just starting off watching this and then going back into learning guard passing. I don't know, that'd be a pretty funny thing to see someone who's good at Berimbolo but can't pass guard. Alright, so that's it for this week's study guide. Merry holidays to all, and thank you guys so much for watching and supporting this channel. If you guys are interested in wanting to keep the study guide to yourself, please follow me and message me on Instagram. I'll send you a link to the Google Drive for you to access it. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'll have more future videos like this. And just remember guys, if you have time to kill, you have time to drill. Peace.